In a time of rising unrest, when borders dominate headlines and immigration policy shapes the future of our nation, the truth matters. From the front lines of law enforcement, national security, and public policy, this is Frontline Facts, where rhetoric is stripped away, where politics takes a back seat, and where facts, hard, documented facts, lead the conversation. As instability grows beyond our southern border, as communities feel the impact at home, we bring you informed voices. Attorneys, senior law enforcement leaders, policy experts, and professionals who understand the law, the protocols, and the consequences. This isn't opinion. This isn't spin. This is clarity in a time of confusion. This is Frontline Facts, and the conversation starts now.
Welcome to Frontline Facts with Luisa Deason, where we correct the rhetoric on immigration issues and, of course, public policy. In today's episode, we will have a special guest, Warren Howell. He's running for Harris County Judge in the Republican Party. We will discuss why he's running, what his vision is for that position, and what he will do as a judge on the first day as a first call to action. Mr. Warren Howell, welcome to the show today. How are you?
I'm fine, and thanks for inviting me.
You're very, very welcome. So you come not as a career politician, but as someone who's been a very good and very successful businessman. Tell me a little bit about your background, and then why are you running for Harris County Judge?
Yeah, I'm a native Houstonian. I've been in business for all my working life, self-employed in Harris County, and I grew up here, of course, and I love Harris County. I raised my family here, and I have been in the construction business, land development. I've been in manufacturing, oil field tubulars, and I started a company called Risk Management Inc. And we built the manuals on how to run your business for 2,500 companies. And I have a commercial insurance agency. So I probably have been training for this job, Harris County Judge, all my life. I just didn't know it.
Well, and that's a pretty impressive background. Now, tell me what it is that you are so passionate about. Now that you've explained why what your background is, tell me why it's so important that you are running for judge in Harris County. What are the mistakes you have seen others do, and what is your passion moving forward?
I'm going to tell you a quick story. One of my newest supporters actually works for Harris County, and she asked me to keep her department anonymous for the time being. But when she, in 2018, she said their department had 200 people. Everybody was working hard, getting things done. And in 2018, as you know, the liberals took over Commissioner's Court. So they started adding personnel, dividing and diluting job duties and description. And suddenly, instead of one person doing four things they always did, they were only doing one. And then they had to go to someone else for the second thing, and then the third and the fourth. And all of a sudden they have 500 employees. No, not much is getting done because it's so inefficient. And the person that was supervising the whole thing for 34 years got so frustrated, she quit and went home. So they're bloating. It's almost like the liberals hate us. They're bloating the government to the point where it doesn't work, and it costs us more than twice as much as it should. They've added departments we don't need, like the Department of Administration that we didn't have for 185 years. So they added a whole new department to be right underneath county judge and before the commissioners in the flow chart of things. This thing's as a county administrator, who right now is Sheila Jackson Lee's daughter. And when I tell you what she's making per year, you're going to want to throw up. But this whole thing is not necessary, needs to go. Tom Ramsey wants it gone. They started with a $2 million budget. Last year, their budget was over $30 million. So a 1,500% increase in just 4 years.
That's alarming. That's alarming. Well, and big government doesn't work. We know that.
And our county administrator, which we don't need, is getting over $400,000 a year in salary, which is twice as much as any commissioner makes. How's that one?
That's a no. That's a no for me.
Yeah. I mean, there's so much going on that we have 9 people making more than 400,000 a year, more than the president of the United States. We have 45 people making more than President Trump's chief of staff, Susie Wiles.
Well, it's obviously this is budget and fiscal policy. That's something that you are well versed in with your background. But what would be some of the first changes you would make?
Just to give you an idea of how I know I can make a difference. There's a little organization or a little group of people, if you will, in the Office of Management and Budget. And county judge makes their submittals for things to be added onto the agenda. So do the commissioners, and so do all the various 62 departments throughout Harris County. And that's why just March 19th, the agenda was 57 pages long and 417 items. And you say, well, how in the heck in one court session are they going to get through 417 items?
They won't.
Well, exactly. But here's the interesting thing. County judge can run the agenda. That means you submit your agenda items, sure. And they're vetted to make, if you're asking for more money, they're vetted to make sure the budget is there. And then they also run it by legal if there's legal ramifications of your item. But other than that, then it gets on the agenda. Well, county judge runs the agenda. And so I've learned during my visits and testimonies to Commissioner's Court that they have a little trick known as, we will put these items here for further discussion, meaning they're not hitting the floor for a vote. And you take control by anything that is not benefiting the citizens of Harris County. I am going to throw for further discussion. And we're going to vote on my agenda and any other agenda items that make common sense.
Well, we've already seen some of the debacle going on with Lena Hidalgo and the incident at the rodeo and the $9,000 worth of tickets allegedly and so on and so forth. But you're talking about Commissioner's Court, and it's the young people there that won't even remove her from or look at any type of prosecution. And I'm not sure where that goes and who's in charge and whether that will even get processed and what that debacle looks like.
The mechanism for removing a county judge or removing a commissioner or removing anyone for that matter is really weak. This is the reason Hidalgo is still there, and she's wanting to stay through November so that she can secure her pension. And so when you're there 8 years or more, it's a very nice pension that she has now developed for the rest of her life. Isn't that great?
No. I remember working, well, my background is I used to work for ICE and immigration, but one of the things that, I know for a fact is one of the first things she did when she got into office was she clearly wanted to release all of the prisoners out of the Harris County jails. And I'm thinking that is ludicrous. If you stop and think about the COVID, these people are already in quarantine. They're prisoners. So to release them is going to pose a greater threat. The threat comes in from the outside in. But she's made some poor decisions as a judge for several years now. It's not her first rodeo, so to speak. No pun intended. But what are some of the things that you see are top priorities for you about what would be the major changes you would make?
Well, after we're elected in November, which we have a team and a plan to make it all the way to November. I'm not even worried about the runoffs. I'm worried about November. But we get through November. Between November and say December 23rd, we're going to be developing our agenda items. And then 2 weeks before the first commissioner's court, we're going to submit our agenda items to be included on the agenda for the first commissioner's court under our administration. And the first thing's going to be listed, we're going to get rid of the person that they hired to consult as a labor union member to consult with all of the labor or employees of Harris County in an effort to transform Harris County into a union organization from top to bottom. So that's the first thing that's going to be on the agenda, that we're going to remove that individual in that office. The second thing that'll be on the agenda that we'll be voting on during the first commissioner's court will be the removal, dismantling of the Department of Administration and, of course, the county administrator. The third thing that'll be on the agenda, and I'm running this agenda, so bear that in mind, is that we will repurpose or expand the duties of the Department of Auditors to change them into our version of Doge. I'm not sure that's a good word, but we're going to do that. Department's going to end up with new management, and we're going to do a forensic audit of all the various departments in Harris County and start getting like that one department that had 200 people and was doing so well. When we get through with this forensic audit, they'll be back to 200 people doing extremely well, maybe 220. And we're just going to take it from A to Z until we have a smaller, efficient government. But those are the first three things that'll be on the agenda. There'll be other things. For instance, we're going to lower the toll road fees by 30% immediately while we restructure and reform that organization through the auditing department. And that right there is going to throw Rodney Ellis and company into a pretty good tailspin. So I'm pretty sure that's going to be a very eventful first commissioner's court.
Well, that sounds pretty aggressive. Now, let me ask you this. This falls under, budget and fiscal policy, responsibility and not overspending. Where will you cut spending aside from those areas?
Well, we're going to eliminate the illegal immigration, or not, they're calling it the Immigration Services Fund, which has cost us over $10 million. That fund will be ended in that first court session as well. And that's going to be another brouhaha. I can't wait, frankly.
Well, and that's really, the source of a lot of the drain of, the waste, fraud, and abuse. I mean, illegal aliens are being deported. I find it comical sometimes when people talk to me, and I get it from all sides. I'm former ICE, I'm former public affairs for DOJ and DHS. And one of the things that I spent a long time going out and working and training on was the 287G program, and how effective that is when you have collaboration with law enforcement to be able to notify them. They're not asking them to do the work. They're asking them to cooperate and to pick up the phone and contact ICE if they apprehend somebody. I did a story a couple of months ago, and it involved how many people were being released under, bonds that, or just simply being released and charges being dismissed because of the O'Donnell case, and what a nightmare that became, because a lot of people will lie when they come into the entry portions of the jail, claiming that they're U.S. citizens when they're clearly not. And if you don't have an ICE agent there doing the work in a secure area, and you're releasing these vicious criminals back out in the communities, they're just wreaking havoc in communities with safety and public, concerns with high crime. And we know that Harris County is riddled with high crime. So what are some of the changes you see in that aspect?
Well, I mean, the sheriff's department's is already really understanding that they're required to operate under 287G. The city of Houston is a problem because they're half of Harris County, and they say that they're going to cooperate, and then the minute they start cooperating, they draw in the wrath of the mayor, saying, well, that's contrary to our public policy. So me and Mayor Whitmire are going to have to sit down and say, look, this is the way it goes. I mean, look at Ben Taub Hospital. That thing is a mess because illegal immigrants are taking up significant amount of space. It's they're everywhere, and they even passed a deal giving Harris Health the go ahead to annex in 8.9 acres of Herman Park because they need more space. Yet their own study, you'll love this, Harris Health's own study showed that we need a trauma center somewhere else. We need one there, sure, at Bentop, but we need another one somewhere else.
Yes.
And because those helicopter rides run $30,000 to $43,000, and that's our nickel if they don't have insurance and don't have the wherewithal to pay it. And in most cases, they don't. So, but that's, they say, well, the trauma center, a brand new trauma center from scratch is going to cost $2.5 billion. I said, well, okay, you pass a bond issue and you get it done. That's what we do. I mean,
well, and illegal immigration cost Texas taxpayers just in the previous administration's 4-year debacle, about $850 million per year just to sustain some of it. I know that we don't have the problems Minnesota has in other sanctuary states, but thank God that we have, a governor and people that are not going to allow this to turn into another little mini Minnesota. But it's crazy to think that, we do have a level of cooperation, but we need more. We need to really end.
Oh, no, we need
taxpayers need to stop footing the bill for everybody who's here that doesn't merit being here.
I'm just sorry that these people, I know a lot of them came over for the right reason. A lot of them didn't, but it's just a matter of, we don't have the infrastructure to handle this sudden influx of non-citizens. And it's a sad state of affairs.
Well, and Mr. Howell, we call them illegal aliens, criminal illegal aliens under Title 8, Section 1325. I mean, this humanitarian effort turned out to be, yes, I understand that there is humanitarian efforts and, there's people that are fleeing with reasonable asylum claims, but 90% of the people that entered this country entered from countries that were either not friendly to the United States or simply, from supported terrorist countries or terrorist countries themselves. And we have approximately 18,000 people that are probably in cells that are Hamas and others that are wanting to do this country great harm. And my biggest concern is not having a leadership at the local levels to be able to make or change the tide or deal with an emergency. What would be some of the things that you would change on an emergency basis based on whether it's flooding, whether it's having to contend to emergency things like terrorist attacks, et cetera, et cetera?
Well, taking one at a time, let's say from a hurricane point of view, we have to have a relationship with rental companies where we can get our hands on cranes rather quickly. We'll have to have trucks with carrying water and ice. So you've got to know where you're going to get that the minute you have a problem. We have to have people that are able to operate a chainsaw because we need an army of people going out with chainsaws to free up means of egress because we've got 5 million people trying to move around and as soon as possible after a hurricane, we've got to be ready and we aren't ready. And of course the reserves aren't there as they normally are, but they will be. We'll get back to that budget here in a minute, but there's $500 to $600 million being misappropriated. And once we fix that problem, that's what's going to be in the general fund. We're going to be in pretty good shape to handle anything. But, and then the boats, and even, we've got some boats of our own, but there's a big old brigade coming in from Louisiana and other spots that when we need them. So it's a matter of having uh, all these people to call and say, let's go, we need you. And then, of course, we have to make that first phone call to the local representative of FEMA so that they can do what they're doing. And of course, providing us with water and ice and things that they'll be able to do. So if we know in advance who and where we get everything from and have it arranged that with a phone call, we get it, that's where we have to be to handle an emergency. And
Well, and interestingly enough, I attended a lunch yesterday, and there were several candidates, and Paul Betancourt discussed the fact that if we had a major emergency today, that Lena Hidalgo simply is not qualified or even prepared enough to even deal with a major emergency at this time. So it's
she,
clear that you have a plan of action, and that's good to hear.
she'd pull her hair out.
Well, now let's move into courts, justice, criminal justice reform, stuff of that nature. How
Okay.
will you look at reducing some of the district and county courts backlogs? I know that there is a tremendous amount of cases that are either being dismissed or there are just such a backlog that people just get frustrated and don't see any resolve or any resolution in sight as far as prosecutions and the moving of those cases rather quickly.
Well, here, the only way you can do it, of course, we control their budget. And so we can always, I hate to use the word threaten, but we can always make them concerned that if they're not performing as they agreed to when they were elected as a judge, we can always, make them concerned that their budget may not be where they need it to be. Secondly, we have to monitor what they're really doing so that we know that they should have cleared so many cases this week and they didn't. And then at that point, we have to have a meeting with each individual judge, ask them what happened, and let them know that we're watching. We're watching them. We're watching every move they make.
Is there a quota for them to reach on a weekly basis now? And if not, what would
It,
you
it's not
suggest?
just it. I guess the word quota is probably not right because each case. It's hard to estimate what each case requires from a time point of view. Some cases are more complicated than others. But on the non-complicated cases, you should be able to knock out quite a few. A good friend of mine, Judge Bain, he is whittling his backlog down. He had a case on there that was on his docket from 1980, and he had a heck of a time getting that off. He said, "Why is this still on my docket?" And so he finally figured out how to get it removed because people that were there and are involved are dead.
Oh my goodness.
It's there's a lot of inefficiencies that are going on, but the only thing you can possibly do is to stay on them and know. And once they know that someone's really watching them, court needs to start at 8 in the morning, and it needs to go through 5 o'clock, and it needs to have the appropriate recesses, of course, and that's it. So if they get down to where they know they're being watched and they know they need to match a schedule, I think you'll see the backlogs start going away. And
Well, and what is your position on pretrial detention, bail reforms, things like that?
well, I mean,
I know a lot of mental health diverse programs.
we've got to get out of the O'Donnell consent decree. That's number one.
Absolutely.
And now it's supposed to retire in September. Thank goodness, but it shouldn't have gone on this long had we not had Rodney Ellis stopping because they had uh, in Davis County, they had the David decision, which gave us all we needed in order to get out of the O'Donnell consent decree, and legal here because we're run by liberals wouldn't pursue it, and so it's costing us 100 to 150 million dollars a year to provide all these bails that we're not supposed to.
Well, and initially started for people that were indigent that had committed misdemeanors, and now we're looking at people that are foreign nationals that are lying about their citizenship that are now felons and they're being released. I mean,
Yeah,
it's just crazy how this whole thing has panned out.
it's amazing. You just hit nail on head. It always starts out as one thing, and then it expands to something far greater. And then here we go. It is absolutely amazing. The jail system, of course, gives these judges a lot of pause on and why they don't want to incarcerate, but rather bail someone when they shouldn't. But we can fix the jail system because we'll have the money to do it. And we have 2 floors, I think, not even being used because we don't have them properly staffed. And of course, our sheriff is not managing the jails very well. I don't know what his background is, but I know that we're going to have to get in there and write a manual on how to things after work. And when an inmate, even to the minor thing, when an inmate is checked in, they have to sign what we call our house rules and agree to comply with those. You're here, and if you violate these rules, this is the disciplinary schedule that will follow, and you'll be here a lot longer if you don't follow our house rules. That's how that guard back in 2022 got raped for 45 minutes while everybody was just walking around the jail.
That's incredible. That's
completely disordered, completely stupid. And so we're going to take the stupid out and put in some common horse sense everywhere you see, everywhere. You won't recognize Harris County in about a year, and that's a promise.
Well, that's good to know. I just know that, one of the struggles in other states has always been getting agents that are ICE agents into the jails to process. It's a secure area. Tom Holman talks about it. I have seen it. I have trained on it. It works. When you have ICE agents at the jails on the intake process and you give them a computer and you put them on the side, they're able to verify the nationality of some of these individuals. They have contacts to the consulates to confirm their nationalities. And it just is crazy to see some of these people not cooperate and then being released back out into the community where they go back to their compadres. They're now armed to the gills. They're doing drugs. They're doing crime. And they're putting the entire community at risk. And it's a very simple process to be able to get an ICE agent to identify these people in a secure area, rather than having 10 agents go out to apprehend this guy at the last known address where he's probably now armed with all of his friends.
Absolutely. I mean, it's just amazing. But yes, that needs to be in place. And look at all the lives that would be saved. That woman that was killed, she was here nursing and just visiting a friend that's in the hospital suffering from cancer over here in the Heights, and she gets carjacked and killed by someone who was out on bond. It's amazing.
And it's common sense.
Yeah.
It's common sense enforcement.
Yeah.
Why we don't have it is a surprise to me.
I have my car wrapped, and on the car wrap, it just says right at the bottom, bring back for a smaller common sense government.
Yeah.
I
completely agree.
It's gotten to the point now where it's not manageable. Can't manage it. And, and I'll say this too, my issues aren't Republican, Democrat, or independent. They're everybody's issues. Everyone.
Absolutely.
Roads that work, a jail system that is ample. They want a police force that responds to a problem quickly, not an hour or two later. They want all of this. Well, that's exactly what we're going to have.
Listen, we're going to have to cut over to a commercial break real quick because we do have sponsors we want to highlight. Thank you for waiting.
When the stakes are high, clarity matters. In today's fast-moving media environment, misinformation spreads fast, especially around immigration policy, national security, and public safety. That's where Deason Consulting Services steps in. Led by Luisa Deason, former investigative journalist, DHS and ICE subject matter expert, and certified neuro-linguistic programming practitioner, Deason Consulting equips leaders, candidates, law enforcement, and executives with clear posture, confident delivery, and fact-based messaging. From immigration policy education and media response strategy to crisis communication and executive message development, Deason Consulting helps you cut through the rhetoric and speak with authority. Whether you're preparing for a press conference, navigating a complex policy issue, or facing high-pressure media scrutiny, we prepare you to lead. Deason Consulting Services, strategic communication, informed leadership, measured response. Contact Deason Consulting today and be ready when it matters most. Call today 832-244-2488 or email Luisa@DeasonConsultingServices.com.
When it comes to motorcycles, there's talk, and then there's real experience. At Mad Dog Moto, it's hands-on. Street bikes, dirt bikes, high-revving machines, and hard-ridden trail beasts. From routine maintenance and diagnostics to engine builds, clutch replacements, suspension upgrades, and performance tuning. Every bolt matters. Carbureted or fuel-injected, electrical troubleshooting, precision dial-ins. No shortcuts, no guesswork. Because performance means nothing without reliability, and power means nothing without safety. This isn't just wrenching, it's craftsmanship. It's knowing how a bike should feel when it's tuned right, how it should respond when you twist the throttle, and how it should hold up when you push it hard. At Mad Dog Moto, every machine gets treated like it's our own. Ready to ride stronger? Call us today at 346-404-3901. I repeat, 346-404-3901. Or email us at maddogmotoservice@gmail.com. Mad Dog Moto, dependable, powerful, ready to up your ride.
Well, we are back. I am Luisa Deason. I am your host for Frontline Facts. We are correcting the rhetoric, and we're coming back to our guest today. We now return to Frontline Facts with our special guest, Mr. Warren Howell. He is a Republican running for Harris County judge. Welcome back to the show. And as we took a break here, we were talking about a couple of things that were of great concern to you. So let's go back into that same conversation and discuss some of the things that you see are just egregious things that need to be fixed. I mean, we're talking about, you know, if we don't win, the Republican Party doesn't win this election, this, you know, if Texas falls, I guess the rest of the country falls. So it's critical that we get people to get out and vote and really understand the issues that you are talking about.
Yeah, what's really critical, you know, when you go to the polls and vote, what do you look for? I mean, what is the trigger that you, or not you necessarily, because you're so informed, but let's say the normal average voter, when they go vote for someone, what do you think they majorly look at or look for?
Well, I think a lot of voters are misinformed and they don't do their own research going to the polls. So they just vote with whoever their friends have suggested voting without doing any research. And that's a very dangerous way to vote.
Yeah,
You know, or they don't know anything about a candidate. They don't go with a list and prepare themselves to be able to answer even on questions about propositions that could change property taxes and whether or not you have, you know, all kinds of things. But tell me what you how you see that.
well, I mean, it's real simple. As I spoke of earlier, we do not have the option to have politics as usual. You we're not in a position where you can vote for a woman because you want a woman to be county judge, or we're not in a position where, well, we want a Hispanic this time to be in place so that the Hispanic community is properly represented. I've heard that one, and I said, we're not at a position where you certain ethnic group needs to be represented, or a certain gender needs to be represented, or in East Parker, maybe it's the LBGTQ community that she will represent. We're in a position where we've got to get down to business and fix this broken, way off track government That's
Well,
what.
DEI is dead, but the thing that people still realize is, they want to get into positions of power, and it's based on merit. You nailed it. I mean, we have to have qualified people knowing what to do.
Yeah.
You wouldn't go to a heart surgeon to get a brain surgery. You go to the specialist. You've got to get qualified people in office at the local level to make a change at state and federal.
And you got to have someone who, I've already had my careers. I'm done with that. You've got to have somebody that actually really just wants to go in and do the right thing and be able to put that feather in his cap that, hey, I just fixed the third largest county in the United States. And I can tell my grandkids, I did that. That's pretty cool. And that's what, life is all about. What? Recognition and money. Well, I've made my money. I'm done with that. So now what can I do to make a difference and make this county like it's supposed to be? Someplace great to live in, work in, own a business, raise a family. That's what it's all about. And I want to be a part of that. I want to be responsible for bringing us back.
Well, and the other biggest fear is, we just can't afford to have Sharia law in this state. I know the governor has voted for that to not happen, and that yet we still have an amazing amount of mosques that are built in today's day and age, and we don't have some of the background, and we just can't afford to have Sharia law. It's not a Western. It doesn't go with our values. What is your position on that, and making sure that we are allowing the right people in, and not letting those that want to do us harm to continue to benefit out of the taxpayers' funding and all kinds of other things?
Any religion that allows a 16-year-old girl to be hung and her crime was she was raped, or a 19-year-old kid, wrestler in the Olympics or wherever he was, to be hung because this kind of religion, these religious zealots cannot exist in our society. I've got a mosque in my neighborhood, and they're not too bad, except for the fact that they park everywhere because they don't have enough parking, and which is kind of concerning because you go, well, how many Muslims are there? And we have quite a population of Muslims right here. But the Muslims I know, I even sold a building to a Muslim. And we played golf together. He's just as normal as anyone you met or could meet. He's and they don't believe in all that stuff. But
Well, and there's a difference between the Christian Muslim and those that are obviously, involved in the Sharia law and have that belief. It's a drastic change amongst both.
it got to be by law. It's got to be outlawed. It cannot exist. We and we have to be on the lookout because they have these Sharia law courts underground. You don't even know they're happening. You don't know that it's there. So we have to really keep our eyes and ears open.
Mr. Howell, I remember after 9/11 doing a lot of research and a lot of community outreach when I worked for ICE. And one of the things that we did was we went out because we were being accused of profiling. Well, we all know that's illegal, but I mean, if you have followed a behavioral pattern, that's what you follow.
Yep.
But one of the concerns that we had was there were people like Sheila Jackson Lee, and of course, she's not here today. But one of the things that she was very concerned about was hurting people's feelings. And I'm thinking in law enforcement, you don't have the luxury of worrying about whether you hurt feelings or not. You're following a pattern of behavior and a crime and statistics. And obviously it's not, we don't want to do harm to people that are here that have taken great strides to assimilate into our way of life in our communities. But we certainly don't want those that keep chanting death to America and that don't want to be here and they're here anyway. But, we had, if I'm not mistaken, not too long ago, maybe just a couple of weeks ago, we had somebody who was invoking the prayer for the Islamic something or other in the commissioner's court. And you think we can't continue to allow these things to take place.
Correct. You can't patronize people. And what they're doing in commissioner's court with that is they're vying for votes. They're always running for re-election. And so they want to be inclusive. I love that word. I want to be so inclusive. Well, the problem with that comes this patronizing to those ideals, to those people whose ideals do not or not congruent with our way of life. You know, Teddy Roosevelt, he did a wonderful speech back in the early 1900s, and he spoke to hundreds of immigrants in a big meeting or a big seminar, or whatever they call it. And he says that we welcome immigration. We welcome you here, but we'll ask you to do three things. One, learn English. Two, learn our history. And three, assimilate to our culture. And by the early 1900s, we had developed the American culture. If we went anywhere in the world, a person could just look at us and say, oh, he's from America. And now we are doing our level best to dilute that to the point where we no longer have an American culture. That's what they're after.
Well, and there was an incident out of McKinney, I believe. I interviewed a gentleman who was very involved in the town hall meetings with the schools and things of that nature and trafficking and whatever else. But
Yeah.
I'll tell you, there was a case that involved, I guess, a school in or near the Denton or near, I guess it was a McKinney ISD. And it was alarming to hear this this young man who came to, I guess he brought it to his attention that they had some kind of a career day. And there was a gentleman out there handing Qurans and Sharia law pamphlets and information. Yet they won't let you bring a Bible into school, and they won't discuss things about the discrepancy and the hypocrisy is that, we need God back in schools. We need to eliminate this rhetoric that teaches children about Sharia law. I mean, Sharia law, people are misguided if they follow Sharia law. It's not a benefit to the Western country, I'll tell you.
Well, because this mosque is in my neighborhood, occasionally I'll see someone walking to the mosque from a way a ways where they had to park and wearing a robe and sandals. And then I see a woman walking and her face is completely covered. And I'm going, well, no assimilation there. It's their culture and not anyone else's. And it's very concerning because, if we don't watch it, we're going to wake up to a world one day that we don't recognize.
I think we have over 500 mosques in the state of Texas. We now lead the nation.
I would.
I know that after 9/11, we had probably the second largest Muslim population. Detroit was the first one, but I think that those dynamics have now significantly changed. And, we just can't continue to allow people need to be better screened and vetted. You look at some of the situations like the shooting that took place in Austin at a bar. And, that was an individual that was here illegally, came in, somehow had assimilated or based on the asylum claim, then was able to marry someone who was a U.S. citizen and so on and so forth. And I mean, these are very astute people. They don't want to wait. They want to marry. I mean, we're doing an investigation on marriage fraud and how many cases have actually taken place in this state and in the surrounding areas because, that's one of the easiest ways to gain a benefit. There's only two ways. You either do it through a family-based petition or you do it through a business petition, which is far more difficult. But it is scary to see what's happening today and how we're just sitting back. People need to really wake up.
Yeah, before it's too late. But it's the good news is if we can get in November, and I think that the odds are that we're going to. I've got some really good support everywhere I go. I must have talked to 1,000 people on Saturday and drove 300 miles and made 5 different talks. And I must say, everywhere we went, the support was overwhelming. And it brings tears to my eyes to see everybody thinking like I am, that we've got to get in and fix it and make Harris County great again, not to pull words from Donald Trump, but we need to do it.
Yes.
And we can do it. That's the good news. We can do it, and we can do it pretty quick. That's in about 9 months. You're with the new budget by September 30th, set up for 2027 or 2028 rather. We're stuck with the budget that is passed in September of 2026. And so by the time I get in office, 25% of that budget is already gone.
Wow.
And so I can only affect, to a certain extent, what's left during the 9 months following September. But on October 1 of 2027, we'll have a budget that will reflect everything I'm trying to do. And let me tell you, even if the commissioners stay just like they are, although I'm hoping that either Leslie Briones is taken out by Steve Raddick or that Adrian Garcia is taken out by Richard Vega there in Precinct 2.
I met Richard yesterday.
Yeah, Richard is a good man, and he'll work with me and Tom Ramsey, and that'll make it go even faster. But even if it doesn't, I feel confident that Leslie Briones, who is the newest liberal on Commissioner's Court, will work with me and Tom when we are able to explain to her how this good old common horse sense and for you to be on board is going to help, not hurt your reelection chances, because you're in a very conservative precinct, and so this is going to help you. And I'm going to say this too. Every Friday, I hope I'm on Michael Berry or somewhere, or I'll do my own radio show. I've done that before on KSEV, but we're going to have a show called The Good, Bad, and the Ugly. And we're going to start off with that Clint Eastwood song. And we're going to go into it and what was bad this week, what was ugly, and then what was good. Now, the bad and the ugly are going to outnumber the good for a while. But when the good starts outweighing the bad and the ugly, we're getting there.
Yes. I want to make a quick shift so that we can kind of wrap this up. But let's talk a little bit about the economic development and jobs.
Okay.
How will you attract jobs and support small businesses in Harris County? I know that a lot of people are now leaving the big companies, and a lot of entrepreneurs, a lot of small businesses. We have a lot of foreign companies coming in and building businesses based on the opportunities that they have today. Where is your vision on that, and how do you see that? What could you possibly do to benefit the small business and business growth in this county?
Well, a lot. Number one, our engineering department, which is going to be completely revamped, is taking more than a year to issue a permit. A permit for building something in Harris County should last at the very latest 60 days, but 30 days for most. And they're being way too inefficient and way too careful on issuing permits. That in and of itself will increase the jobs, the number of people working, because projects will no longer be on hold that long. Secondly, once we can get the toll road fees down, like I want, people will be able to afford to commute better. That's going to help a lot. I've had people tell me they can't afford to drive the toll roads to go to work. It makes, at the end of the month, it's another car payment.
Well, and I thought we were supposed to pay for that for the first couple of years, and that would be the end of that. But yeah, you're right. I do a lot of business where I have to get tolls, and for some people, it's, $20 or more a day. And if you do that 5 or 6 days a week, that starts to take a good chunk of your paycheck.
But every time a government starts becoming efficient and at the right cost to the taxpayers, the economic development always exponentially grows. To the more we become efficient, the more we become cost effective. I've seen it. The economic growth is exponentially increased. by our becoming more efficient. And that's going to, and then of course, by lowering taxes, when we get everything done and everything's in the right place, we'll be able to lower taxes. You realize if your government did everything it was supposed to do, federal, state, and local, your tax burden would be nothing. Your income tax would be almost nothing. You'd be giddy to write your tax check because it it just wouldn't be much. You'd be happy to pay your taxes.
Well,
If
now most people don't want to, taxpayers don't want to continue to foot the bill for some of the medical, taxes and property taxes that they have just simply because of the illegal immigration problem. I know it's a lot of other issues that are encompassed in that, but one of the things that this state was really burdened with was the illegal immigration problem, and that is always a burden on the taxpayers.
Well,
Um,
we've got to get them. We've got to keep moving them out and getting them to come in the right way. We have no choice. And I understand what ICE is doing, and I know, unfortunately, it has to be done. But whose fault was that? They brought them in, and without any vetting, without anything, and now we have to fix it. And so it's not the most popular thing in the world to do for some, but it has to be done because we simply will bankrupt ourselves if we don't.
Well, and the other issue is, in many cases, people don't understand to come into this country illegally is a Title 8, Section 1325 violation.
Yes.
If you come in and you're in excess of 180 days here without getting any kind of a permit to work or anything like that, that's another ding on your record. If you then turn around and get a fake document to work, that's a double ding. And then, of course, if you are asked to leave on a voluntary basis and you don't, that's another ding. So that's around 5 different violations of federal immigration laws right there. And people seem to think, well, they're just here to work. Yes, but they're a very vulnerable party that are still tied to the cartels that brought them here. And people don't realize that they're still under threat. And if somebody says, I want you to walk this bomb into, this restaurant or put it under this chair or put it under this vehicle, we're going to start seeing things that we'd never seen before. And this is what people seem to miss in the portion of when you're here illegally, you are subject to being compromised. And I know a lot of people come in and they do great work and they walk a fine line, but if in 20 years you haven't had a chance to fix your immigration status, perhaps what needs to happen is there needs to be a creation of something that allows you to work here on a temporary basis. But I don't see that we're going to have any kind of an immigration reform during this administration. I mean, we need to figure out who's here and get those people out. And
Yeah.
that's just the way of that we have to fix the problem.
We are at that point. A good friend of mine I play golf with, Gary Rickenbacker, his only son, which he and his wife, they spent 10 years trying to conceive. They finally were able to, and their 19-year-old son one day was killed by a head-on collision from an illegal immigrant running from the law.
What a terrible, what a preventable tragedy.
Yeah, I mean, completely. And so we were having, so that was I think that was 3 years ago. So each year we'd have a golf tournament and to benefit the organization that helps victims of crimes. And so we had our second, you better get a handkerchief out on this one. We had our second tournament, and me and Gary Rickenbacker shaking hands and hugging each other, and everybody's having a good time. We had about 200 people out there, and everybody's doing what they're supposed to. And at the end, we had dinner, and then I said I had to go because I was busy running for office. And I said, Gary, you have a blessed evening, and this is a good event. We got to keep this going. And he said, absolutely. And then Monday morning, I got a phone call that Gary died that morning of a heart attack.
Oh my goodness.
So his wife, Melissa, is sitting back, lost her only son, lost her husband, and she's sitting at the house right now, and she is a basket case. And I know of no words to make her feel any better. They just don't exist.
That is a terrible tragedy. Well, we'll certainly keep her in our prayers. And we've come to the end of our show.
Sure.
And I certainly want to thank you, Mr. Howell, for being on the show with us today. I would love to invite you back. I know that you're going to be very active, continue to be, and I'd love to, I've got a couple of people that I'd like to interview. Maybe you can have some reach out and connect me with some of the people. I'd like to interview Rafa, or the gentleman that is running for county commissioner. We invited him yesterday and shared our information, but you've brought a lot of insight into what you intend to do on day one. And of course, all of this is something that people need to listen to and hear and really become educated about the candidates that are running and move forward. And, I tell people that don't want to get out and vote because they don't think they can make a difference, is the most important vote you have is your local vote. You must get out and vote.
We're in a runoff by 417 votes. That's it.
Yes.
And that's at 38,000 votes. So 417. So every vote counts. Every single vote will count. But
absolutely,
if we can get the message out and get everybody to the polls, during the runoff, it's even less participation, 50% less, they tell me, than the primaries. And I said, well, man, this primary election is more important to the general, because if you don't go to the primary, you don't get the individual you want. You get
exactly
what you're left with. And that may, in many cases, that's not a good deal.
And you're so right on that. I tell people all the time, early voting is critical. And when you get a runoff, you've got to vote. It is critical because for that very reason. Well, we come to the end of Frontline Facts. I'm your host, Luisa Deason. We want to thank our guest, candidate Warren Howell, who's running for Harris County Judge of the Republican Party. And we want to wish you all the best of luck. And we certainly want to invite you back to the show. So with that, we wrap and close, and you all have a great Easter.
Have a good one, and a happy Easter to you, Luisa.